I was able to get my hands on the top 16 Valencia Iyslander list, so I wanted to cover it. And so I reached out to the deck author. People who remember the metagame recap from Valencia, we noticed that there was an Iyslander that made top 16, which was definitely off of my radar. It's a hero that I think a lot of people have kind of written off and maybe not fully explored. And despite the fact that basically everything in the top 32 was consisting of the usual suspects, there was this one Iyslander that broke into top 16. So I reached out to Ben and got some overall feedback over how the deck played. When we look at the list, it's pretty standard from what most people would be playing. I mean, Silver Age definitely has room for experimentation, but because it's a restrictive format, by nature of cutting out Majestics and Legendaries and Fables, you kind of end up on the same list for the most part. So everything here, I think, is what most people would expect. We see, Ice Veins, good tall spells with Ice Bolt, Voltic. We have, the Wounded Bolt, so we have Fighting Spirit, and then, Wounded Bolt itself. Absorbent Aether is pretty cool, though. So this was a card I wasn't playing. I think I was opting for yellow Ice Vein in this slot, but this is just a way to, scale damage very quickly while still blocking efficiently. You do have to consider that, Waning Moon is not legal in this format, so a lot of your curve is kind of built around 3 resources. So when you take a look at a lot of these cards, cards like Aether Hail, this works with, Waning Moon, but it doesn't work with Crucible. So that's where cards like Absorbent Aether can just kind of seamlessly, work on the curve. And then when we go down into the sideboard, this is where things get pretty interesting. So this is where it deviates a lot, at least from like the list that I was playing and building on the channel. So we have a combo specifically for fatigue decks. So we have Ice and Howl Weathervane, or when you fuse, you're going to make 4 Frostbites. And the way that this combo works is that you need to pitch stack this appropriately. So you need to get 1 copy of this in an arsenal, and then your pitch stack needs to be 2 copies of Ice Eternal, the other Weathervane, and then an ice card. Specifically, it should be a blue. So you're going to play E-Pots throughout the game, and then you're going to pop one of the E-Pots, you're going to play the 2 Ice and Howls without pitching a card, and then you're going to play one of the Ice Eternals for 0. So you're going to pay X equals 0. Now, normally this would result in you making 0 Frostbites, however, because of Weathervane, if you just fuse with that Ice Blue left in your hand, you still meet the condition and you make 8 Frostbites and you deal 8 Arcane to them because you fuse, so it doesn't matter how much you paid as long as you play this for 0 unfused. You're then going to IP the blue card, the blue ice card you fuse with. You're going to arsenal the other Ice Eternal. And then as soon as your opponent gives you priority, you're going to play the Ice Eternal from arsenal, pitching, ideally all blues from your hand, including the other E-Pot and your Spellfire Cloak. So you always have to hold back 1 card, right, to actually have the fuse. So that same blue ice card is just going to stay in your hand again. You can pay 12 resources with everything else, which means that the second one should be dealing 14 if my math is correct, because you're going to have 8 Frostbites that are still under your opponent's control from the first one that you played. And then you're going to play the second one where you paid 12 and then it gets cut in half because it's, XX is a cost. And so you're going to make 6 more Frostbites and then you're going to deal 14 to your opponent. Overall, it's a lot of damage. You do need to chip down your opponent's life total throughout the game though. If they're at 20 and they have like AB3, this isn't going to work. It really only works if you've been, trading damage consistently. In our example game today, we do it against an Oldhim. However, we do mess it up pretty drastically by 1 small mistake in terms of pitch stacking. We end up losing the game because of it. And I think that it's important to just have this fundamental down. So it just needs to be that you just will not pitch another card unless if it's one of these combo pieces in that matchup. So it has to be the 2 Weathervanes, the 2 Ice Eternals, and then an Ice Blue, and then all blues behind it. If any part of that goes off the rails, you're leaving yourself open to just accidentally tripping up on the combo. We have Scar, which is also important in matchups like that to trade physical damage, just to push things over. Then we have Arctic against aggro decks. We have Oasis against Chane, and Brain Freeze is good against Briar, and it can be good against Azalea and Chane. So it kind of flexes in all the slots here. So I went ahead and working with Ben a little bit, I was able to get kind of like a general matchup guide for what I think most people play against Battle Hardened. I didn't take the time to work through every single deck that would exist out there. And I went through it, I made all the matchup guides, and then I asked, and it seemed like this was relatively, solid advice for how you would side in these matchups. If some of this is wrong, please correct me. In Briar, you're just playing Disruption, right? You're just generating Frostbites because that deck is redline. So anytime you're given a Frostbite, you're usually getting like +3 because she normally has to pitch like a whole red card. And if you play a card like Red Arctic, it just completely time walks her. And then she normally has to present AB0, so you're just chipping down her life total while still presenting Disruption. Brain Freeze from Arsenal is absolutely incredible against her, and you just deal damage while she just can't resolve her cards. Same should probably go for Azalea, And then into Ira. Ira is a tough matchup from my understanding, but we can trade a little bit more damage and be a little bit more aggressive. Try to speed up the clock, because as the game grinds out more and more, I think it goes more towards Ira's favor. She's just accumulating +1 every single turn. And her blue base is just really dense, so she's able to go wide. She can flex her curve really easily, so a lot of decks like Briar just cannot account in deck building for you just taxing a resource every single turn. But Ira's curve is built around you going like Kodachi, 1 cost, right? So if your game plan is, giving someone a frostbite every turn, you can just go Kodachi 1 cost and pay through that frostbite. So overall, I can understand fundamentally why it's a tough matchup. I always thought that it was Ira favored when both the heroes were legal in Blitz. It is an interesting one. So Chane, you can pivot between a bunch of different things. It's a very hard deck to pin down, but I think that Ben's idea behind it was you can fatigue Chane. This is what I have been able to do successfully as well. And the way that it kind of works is that you disrupt them and you need to be playing aggression. And as you're presenting all this aggression, you're slowing down their game plan enough that you can just not take damage. So the biggest issue with the deck is that if they're able to send normal turns at you, like 5 cards, so they just rip a couple of rune gates off the top, play a rune chant generator, give it go again, send a rune gate, and then in the end game, they still have that huge push turn where they can go like at minimum like double rune gate, if not triple rune gate, and you're at sub 10, you instantly die. So the nice thing about Iyslander in that matchup is what you want to do is you kind of just want to be presenting disruption, and that way they can just never fully deal like huge push turns before like the final pitch stack. And then surviving the final, 2 turns of the game is like relatively easy if you have some kind of disruption available. So like if you go into that turn playing like Red Arctic, if you just sit on Arsenal, wait till they go down to their last hand and they have like 5 shackles, so this should be around turn 5, you can just play like the Red Arctic and it should disrupt most of their turn, especially if you put like another blue disruptive card, so like blue Arctic, and then you just basically make their combo turn implode. Same goes with going into that combo turn, playing like red, either Ice Vein, fusing with blue Arctic, throwing the blue Arctic in Arsenal, playing the blue Arctic in response to the shackles, stuff like that. I do think that the deck can beat you though, by just rolling hot and you just not drawing enough disruption, because then you take too much damage and you can't reasonably fatigue the deck anymore. It's a very tricky matchup, and I feel like I need like 20 more reps to understand it. I think overall this deck is very complicated. It feels like the highest skill cap deck I have played in Silver Age, so I spent actually like 3 days testing and recording games. So this is not like me just ripping the list and then like just throwing it on Talishar. I accumulated like 3 days of testing before I even decided to start recording. And even the recorded games, didn't exactly go super smoothly. So I do think it's a really hard deck to play, or maybe it's just a little bit poorly positioned. I feel like top 16 makes sense for it though. Finally, we have our sideboard into Bravo. Ben told me was that the game plan here is trying to disrupt the Bravo's curve. It seems like the Bravos were trying to be aggressive and push damage, and in that case, being able to play more Ice Disruption to throw them off of the curve, either preventing them from actually keeping an extra card to Arsenal so they can pay through the Frostbite, or actually just completely, time walking the turn or not letting them actually use the hero text was the game plan. So for what I was told is that we are testing Red Arctic in the matchup, and then of course Oasis just makes sense against, a deck that is dealing evasive damage. So overall, that is the list. I think on the whole, it's a very difficult deck to play. The games today were after like 2 to 3 days of actually like proactively testing the list. So it wasn't just like I took the list, hopped into Talishar, which I've actually done for plenty of videos, because I actually think that this deck is very difficult to pilot. So I had a lot of practice games, and even still, I just feel like there's a lot of spots where I feel like I don't exactly quite understand what the deck needs to do to win. Now that could be indicative of the deck's power level, or, I think it probably is a mix of both. I think it's also just a very hard deck to play. And to quickly touch on the equipment suite, from my understanding, Glacial Horns just freezing a card was good enough, not needing the combination with the arms. So the idea here is that you just freeze a card in Arsenal, and then you can just, deal damage, and then during their turn, play your spell from Arsenal and win the game, and you don't need to actually destroy the card in Arsenal, which I think I do like in theory. It just becomes a little bit difficult when sometimes they just have a way to survive and then they just get the card back anyway. And then in the maybe board, I was told about some ideas with Cold Snap or Brothers in Arms having more pitch outlets, which I think kind of makes sense when you compare it to something like Absorbent Aether, and the fact that the curve of the blues is just a little awkward sometimes. Overall, that's the deck list. We'll jump into some games against some of the top heroes. That way you can kind of see what the idea is behind the deck list. In a Briar here, we're playing second. Brain Freeze can be a really good card to have in Arsenal. So instead, I think what we're going to do with this hand is we're going to play Winter's Bite, rip a whole card from her. We're going to play Ice Bolt, using Crucible, sending 6 damage. She only has Spell Fray, so she's probably just going to take 6. And then we'll put the Brain Freeze in Arsenal. This can be really good if she opens up with just like an attack with Go again, right? Yeah, so now we get to Fuse, see her hand. We see Second Strike and Nimblism, and then a Lightning Press. We can't take the Lightning Press, and we know about the Second Strike, but this is pretty good because now we can just rip this. We could have also considered putting the Nimblism on top. The Rabble would actually only come in for 3, but the only thing for her here is that she's going to have to pitch one of these cards to send Reaping Blade if she doesn't want to just IP2, since both these cards will require, you know, like an attack to be on the Chane. And then we just get kind of an easy block 3 here. Unfortunately, we're actually up on tempo here, so we're going to have to go ahead and just play the Fighting Spirit and not gain the life off of it. But if she takes the damage, she goes down to 7, which is pretty dicey. Realistically, it's only like 2 spells away from us winning, but we are at 17. So we get a block for 3 with a Jack Nimble. This hand's very good. We can just block a bunch basically. All right, so we do know about the Lightning Press though, so we're just gonna block for 6 here. I don't know if it can go above this, unless if there's 2 Lightning Presses in hand. Maybe the hand was a brick. I really don't know. This is very interesting. Okay, so that's 1 Lightning Press, so the second one from Arsenal. That's fine. I think that was fairly telegraphed. Kind of a brick though, which is good for us. We're gonna get to play red Arctic Incarceration and then hold the blue one in Arsenal. So we'll probably send ourselves up to lock out 2 turns potentially. We can respond to this Embodiment of Earth if we want to. I guess we might as well. We can just make sure that this turn is actually just truly a Time Walk. And then what we're gonna do here is we're going to play Ice Eternal. We're going to play it for 6. We're going to fuse the Arctic. We're going to give more Frostbites. If she tries to break them, then we just play the blue Arctic again. So I think she's just going to get locked out probably of like 3 turns. And then in between one of the turns, we could even do it on this turn if we wanted to. We could activate the Glacial Horns, but I think I'm going to do that the turn afterwards. So after we do this whole cycle, just in case that we don't draw any actual like Frostbite or resource taxing, then I need to slow her down that way. But this combination should slow her down into our next turn, and then we can reassess if we need to use the Glacial Horns. So she's sending Snatch. It's a little bit unfortunate because this doesn't do anything. We don't know what the arsenal is. We do know about the 2 Lightning Presses gone, so this is not coming in for anything extra. I don't think there's any way to get this go again or anything like that. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to hold on to the Arctic and Arsenal, as weird as it sounds. And then we're just going to play the Absorbent Aether just to cover it for 4. And then we're just going to play the Ice Bolt for 4 on our turn. And then we can cycle a spell into Arsenal afterwards and then try to close the game out that way. So this is where I think I would use Glacial Horns. Like, we're wrapping up this game basically. She's dead in like 2 spells. So I think I would just prefer to use it here. Just make sure that this card just cannot be played. Looks like it's Polarity and Arsenal that's getting played for only 1 life. That's really good for us. We're going to go ahead and activate Crucible. And then we'll get to play our Ice Bolt. Out of 4, it's good for us. If we had something like Blue Emeritus, okay, we draw it right there. Perfect. So if we can just get this Blue Emeritus in Arsenal, I think we probably have this wrapped up. We'll play the Arctic from Arsenal, give her 2 Frostbites. I think we're going to have to say no blocks on this probably. I need to wait to see a different card if she's going to send anything else. We need 1 blue to send the Wounded Ball, and then 1 blue to keep an Arsenal, which is going to be the Emeritus here. All right, there's Yellow Captain's Call. It's actually pretty bad to play into this. Comes in for 7. We're going to block for 3. Not great. We took 4, but I'm hoping that we're setting ourselves up to win. The Wounded Bull sadly only comes in for 7, but she needs to basically block out the entire thing. All right, she does get a block for 7. Unfortunate for us, but it is what it is. We'll go ahead and Arsenal the Emeritus and then see what the turn is from her. We do have a lot of defensive capabilities left though, like we can block with this Fighting Spirit, we can use the Ironhide Gauntlets, Bracers of Belief only gets +1 here I think, so we're kind of chilling. So I think what we're going to do here is we're just going to start by blocking for 3, we'll take 2, then we can reassess if we need to do anything differently. We pop Blossom for Reaping Blade, that's fine. We're just going to go ahead and just block for 3 on this, and then we'll just go ahead and send Fighting Spirit again. We get a block for 6. My opponent goes to 3, so this should be lethal if they don't have Polarity. I guess we can just go ahead and just do it in response to the embodiment here. Crucible, we'll send Emeritus, and then if for some reason they have Polarity or something, we can just use Snapback. They do not, so we're able to scoop it up. Against Chane here, we're going second, and our opener is pretty awful. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try to filter out some cards out of this hand. They're passing priority with an action point. I don't think I want to go down to this few cards though. That can be potentially like a little bit scary. So I think that we are just going to hold on to the photon. But overall, this hand really sucks. This hand does basically nothing. What we're going to do is we're just going to pitch this to get this out of hand. And then we're going to play the Brain Freeze. We're going to fuse with the Frosting. I guess we'll throw the Frosting into Arsenal. They show their hand. We get lucky. We're able to rip or read the runes. That's a lot of potential damage missed for the deck. We'll put the Frosting in Arsenal. Let's have a little bit of damage during their turn. Their Shackle is going to banish it, which is pretty sick. So they banish, they read the runes. They're going to crack Ebb and Fold. Probably to put the Venom in banish. I think we'll just go ahead and play the Frosting here. We're not going to bother pitching a Crucible. I don't think we really need to. Play an Envelop to go up to 3 rune chance. I activate Chane. This is going to come in for 10 with Go again, and then probably get followed up by the Reaping Blade. So a ton of damage. We're already getting smacked around a little bit. We're just going to block for 9 here, and I think just Arsenal the Arctic. We get hit with Reaping. We're down to 11. Not a great start. This hand is kind of okay. We have Oasis, so we can pitch and then still gain a life and protect our health total. We could even split it up too. If there's only like 1 Arcane, we could use the Ironhide as well. They banish a Pummel. That's good for us. That's 1 out of the deck. That's partially why the Oasis is in this matchup to begin with. So we play Soul Reaping and we banish, but it doesn't have Blood Debt. So we're just doing it just to cheat the resource cost, which is still really good. We're just gonna block for 6 here, I guess. And I guess we'll stick the Ironhide in front, and then we'll just pay for it, and then we'll probably use Oasis on whatever the next thing is. We send Spellblade Assaults. So unfortunately, it's not as efficient as I want it to be, but it's still fine here. We're going to go ahead and take no damage from the Spellblade. I guess we're going to have to play the Red Arctic here and just filter the blue one into Arsenal just to be efficient. This hand is like almost disrupted, but we're missing a Fuse card here. Just kind of unfortunate. They banished both Pummels now, so if we ever had a chance to steal a game for no reason, it's because they banished the 2 Pummels. And then a Venom Wraith. I don't know if we shackled or not. So this does not have Go again. If that is the case, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to block with these 2 cards. We have to IP, which sucks. We need to hold on to the Arctic though. It's very important for the matchup if we're going to try to disrupt and then fatigue out the Chane. And then I'm going to hold this card in hand because if there ever was a card that I wanted to have in my hand to disrupt them, it's going to be Ice Vein over all the other cards in the hand. Ice Eternal just like does not do the same thing. The rest of the cards aren't disruptive. So I think that the Aether Ice Vein I think is the most important part here, because like, for instance, my opponent can't really do much and they pass here. This is like the one card I would want to carry over between the 2 hands. It's the one thing that actually disrupts them. They're only on AB2. So my opponent rips a couple cards off of their shackles. They're going to play Envelop. We could use the Arctic here, but I think I'm going to wait to see if they have any more Rune Chain generators. This doesn't break the threshold for any of the current cards, so I think I want to wait to see another one before I would consider pulling the trigger to give a Frostbite so that we can tax the Runegate card an additional resource. So far, we're not seeing that yet. They're still stuck on 1. They break the arms, but they have the resource floating, so I don't think it works to give the resource here. They're able just to pay through it. It's not a big deal. We activate Chane, make another Shackle, and then we're sending Deathly Delight. So yeah, we're gonna have to just block this out. I don't think it's worth taking damage to resolve the Ice Vein. So let's go ahead and pitch, and we'll go and just block for 5. I actually miss that it comes in for 8 because of the Envelop. So we'll just go ahead and just fold the hand here. We play another Incant. That's actually kind of okay for us. I was more worried that we were just going to eat 3 damage and go to 8 here. That's the main concern, is just taking a bunch of free damage before the final couple turns where you can kind of like pull out all the stops and try to disrupt it. But 2 Incants is still kind of a problem though. It's a lot of passive rune generation for a couple turns. We do banish a read though, so I think we're out of red reads. Banishing a Spellblade Assault's really good because I think the other one's in pitch stack. So that's a lot of potential generators gone. That's the main problem with the end game here. So I think we have about 2 turns before it's the final push. We're going to activate Chane with 2 Rune Chants. We have access to Deathly Delight, which is very not great for us. I mean, this could be a lot of damage, although you can win this matchup at 1, right? So I guess that's mainly what we care about. I'm going to take the Rune Chants. It's not efficient to pay for them at this point. I don't care about the life gain here. It's less relevant. So I'm just going to go ahead and block for 5. We're going to passively gain 1 back off of the Sirens. I still have 5 cards left though. We're going to play Flying High Blue. It doesn't even really need to be a blue attack. It's just basically like another go again conversion. Yeah, like it just works clean. This is not great. I think we're gonna have to fold the Aether Ice Vein, even though I wanted to keep it. We're gonna play Malefic, Reaping Blade. I think this is where I probably would think about using Glacial Horns. This should be one of the final turns of the game. They're gonna draw 4 cards, so that takes their deck count down to the bottom 9 cards. And it should be the first 5 things that they pitched. So I believe that their Shackles next turn are basically going to be the pitch stack. I think there's a stack of a couple of Phantom Banshees that are underneath it, along with a red Spellblade Assault, but that's, I think, less important because they already have 1 in Banish. So I think we're going to pull the trigger here. We're going to use this. We're going to freeze the Arsenal, and then we're going to pass, and then this should be their pitch stack. So I think the next set of cards are going to be the 2 Phantom Banshees, I think a red Spellblade Assault, and a couple other cards I just can't remember. We're gonna play the Putrid Stirrings. The 2 up though, I think this is where we play the Arctic. This will require them to give an additional resource here to be able to play the Phantom Wraith. All right, so unfortunately they do have it. If it was a red, we would have got lucky, would have shut down the whole turn, but oh well. And they still have the ability to send a Reaping after this, so that's not great. We're gonna take the Rune Chance. It's less important here. We care more about blocking all the physical. And then putting the Winter's Bite into Arsenal. This thing comes in for 10 though, which is insane. So we're gonna go ahead and block for 9. If they swing Reaping here though, it's actually really bad. I think they actually need to sit on the 3 Rune Chance. Oh, they have Venom. Oh my god. Oh, I missed that part. Yeah, we're just dead. Okay, that's very unfortunate. So yeah, the deck can definitely still stack you out. If we had a little bit more disruption, maybe we're able to like disrupt them a little bit harder. I think overall it can be a good matchup for you, but they did banish 2 pummels. So like if we ever were gonna get lucky, I think it was this game, but I think we tripped up a little bit too much on disruption in the early game. I think you do need to be consistently presenting disruption against them. You can't just fully do fatigue or else they do just get to sculpt. We were able to disrupt them a little bit, but it's just not enough to get there. I completely forgot that they had the Banshee. Not that it matters. I mean, this turn is just too much damage. I wanted to run back another game, but somehow forgot to record the audio for my mic. So we're just going to put this up to like 200% speed. And I'm just going to talk through a couple things. We basically play the exact same game plan where we are just trying to send some disruption to try and slow down the Chane. That way they're not able to play full power turns before their pitch stack. I think that's honestly how they win a lot of these games, is when they get to play like a normal aggressive game plan, but then just like get to double or triple rune gate you when you're like sub 10 health. And so we play pretty much the same way, still prioritizing the same things in Arsenal. I will say though, my opponent, I think, dumped a little bit too much of their power stuff in the early game. By the end of the game, a lot of the rune generators were gone. So it was mainly just them sending 1 rune gate attack with the Soul Shackle, sending the second one. And so we just need to like block 6, and then their end game just wasn't as powerful. I think they need to mix a lot of rune generation for the end game to actually push over most of the damage. But overall, I think it's a very delicate matchup. There's definitely some variance involved with the Shackles. If they just like lose a bunch of their power cards immediately off the top of the deck, or some pretty important glue pieces, or if they banish all the rune gates too early and they sit in banish for a while, the game can go very differently. I think it's kind of flexible because of that. You can play this a couple different ways. You can try to tempo them if they play too slow or their banishes are bad. Overall, I think it's like kind of a tricky matchup. I wouldn't exactly know who is favored yet. Playing into Oldhim here, it looks like they're on AB4, which is pretty insane. We're just going to go ahead and set up an E-pot here and just pass. I'm thinking about maybe pitching down one of these cards to start filtering, but I think everything here is pretty good for first cycle. We're just going to go ahead and put the Ice Bolt into Arsenal. I'm just going to come with Boulder Drop. We're going to block 7. See if my opponent wants to do anything, and then when they pass priority over this, we'll just go ahead and play the Ice Bolt. The reason why I do this is I kind of want them to like play something like Fruits. It's like they're passing priority, so we're just going to go ahead and resolve it. The only issue here though is that, you know, they have an extra card they probably need to dump anyway, so I don't really think we're gonna get to leak that much. Okay, actually we end up leaking 2, actually pretty good. I go ahead and throw Scar. Could have probably thought about putting an Arsenal. My opponent probably can't convert 4 cards, so this actually might be a mistake here. Like a very small micro one, but I think gameplay wise, Oldhim can't really convert 4 cards. So I think that just sending this for 4 and just giving him the option just to block is kind of useless. So I think that the next card that we get, we probably need to think about it a little bit differently. Looks like he's going to convert 2 cards just to stop the 4. His next hand has Ice Eternal, so we need to get this down into pitch. This hand itself is not really great. So we're going to take my previous advice and we're just going to go ahead and IP2 here. Seems a little bit weird, but we need to push damage over against this deck because it's just playing to fatigue us, which is pretty obnoxious, but we need to figure out a way to solve the puzzle. We're going to go ahead and put the Scar into Arsenal. And then this hand's okay. So we can go Scar into Ice Vein, fuse with the Frosting. My opponent's only sending Hammer with 5 cards though. If I had to guess, it might be a Pummel or they have some life gain effects. Either way, we're going to take the damage here. Nothing. They really couldn't do anything else with 5 cards. That's so interesting. We're going to go ahead and send our Scar for Scar. Really trying to figure out what it could have been. I guess maybe it was just a bunch of block cards. I guess that makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and send Aether Ice Vein. We'll go ahead and fuse with the Frosty, and we're going to hold on to the Absorbent Aether in hand. Nice thing here is that since my opponent's not on AB5, they will end up losing 2 resources or a card to it. Although with AB4, they can, just do this where they pitch 2 blues and then just use that floating. We're going to go ahead and Arsenal our Frosting. If my opponent sends a 1-card play with the Hammer, they're tapped out, so we can actually push a lot of damage, which is pretty good for us. They're just going to pass. I think that's okay with us. We're just going to go ahead and resolve the E-Pot and then pass back. Although we're actually going to pitch to Crucible to clear this Eisenhall out of hand. It's part of our combo and it's a 2-block. We need to get it into second cycle. This way we can filter faster and we can find some blues or 3 blocks for my opponent's turn. We have the 2 E-Pots set up, so now we just need to get everything else sorted. We have the next Ice Eternal, so I think our pitch stack is good to go. The pitch, it's not even for 4. I'm just going to go ahead and block for 3 here. If they pummel it, that's fine. They're not going to pummel it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play the Ice Bolt. This is a very weird game. We're really just kind of doing nothing. I wonder if there's a D-react to my opponent's arsenal, maybe like Staunch or something, and they're just kind of stuck on this. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. It occurs from time to time. We're going to send 5. They're going to just take 1 though, so this is kind of not as much damage as we need to push over. AB4 is definitely a problem. We clear out some cards though. We don't want them having too many cards this game. They do have Polarity though, so they're back up to 19. This is not great. Just passing. I think that we're just going to have to go ahead and just play the Frosting and see what that card in hand is. It was just a blue. They're literally just, okay. I think that this card has to be Staunch. I'd be very surprised if it's something different. In that case, I think I'm just gonna put them in the same spot. I'm gonna Arsenal Hail and I'm gonna pass. This has been a very strange game. Just gonna send Titan's Fist. We are just gonna block for 3. All right, we're gonna see if that card in Arsenal is Staunch. I really just want to clear this Absorbent Aether out of my hands. I need my opponent to be in a spot where they send Hammer, but don't have like 2 cards just IP'd for no reason. So they block for 1. This is definitely Staunch. Okay, that's actually Staunch from hand. All right, so they are just passing. This is absolutely mind-numbing, to be honest. We're gonna go ahead and send Fighting Spirit. We'll gain a life off of this. Play Springboard on this. They're gonna Earth React. Okay, they have Fertile Ground, so they have even more life gain in this deck. Taking 2 though, so that's good. I just need them to attack us. Okay, so they do attack us here. This is good. We'll go ahead and we'll react on the Titan's Fist with Absorbent Aether. We'll have an extra +2, and then we're gonna go ahead and activate Crucible, and then we'll play the Aether Hail. It's a good amount of damage, but it's just not going to get over it because I think they just probably have 2 blues in hand. I mean, maybe I get lucky and they have reds, but I just don't think that 5 is going to be enough to push over anything meaningful. So they pitched on a Polarity. That's fine because we're going to draw our combo before they see the Polarity. I actually think they probably should have held down Arsenal. So if anything, we may actually get a window to win here because they're just not going to have that. Because by the time that they would redraw that, we're going to be completely out of a deck at that point. We'll go ahead and send our Voltaic Bolt, and now we need to think about actually getting down to those final couple cards and then getting the combo rolling. So they take 2 here. This is good. They send Titan's Fist. I think that we're going to say no blocks here. We need to think more about the cards in our hand and overall deck damage versus individual math. Because this is terrible, right? Like we're not actually doing anything super efficient here, but we need to just like hold on to these and keep on throwing the 8s, and then we need to set up the Aether Ice Vein to rip some cards from them, and then that way we can set up our final combo a little bit easier. Because now they play Staunch. I don't think that they're going to attack us with Hammer if we have an Arsenal, because they just know that they're just going to leak like probably up to like maybe 6 true damage for no reason. So I think we're safe arsenaling here. Right, so yeah, they're just going to IP the card. It's probably just a blue. That's fine. We'll go ahead and probably just send Wounded Bolt. Now they're in the same spot as before. We'll send the Wounded Bolt. We can put the blue Ice Bolt in the arsenal if we want, depending on how many cards they block with. If they actually do block with like 3 cards here, it's still fine to put it in here, because even if they have to sandbag like a blue card, it's still not a big deal. We'll get to at least leak 1 damage over. They're gonna Earth React just to make sure they're taking literally 0 damage. This is crazy. I'm gonna go ahead and arsenal this Ice Bolt. Hope to draw some blues. We draw no blues, that's bad. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna send 4, or no, we'll send 5. Okay, that's good, because we need to leak 1 here. They actually have flash cards in hand, that's good for us. It's actually not a bad pitch stack if we have a snapback and pitch. Now we're getting pretty close to the pitch stack here, so we need to start setting up. So this Eisenhower is going to go into Arsenal, and then we're just going to try to get both of the Ice Eternals in hand with the blue. Passing here, we're going to play the Winter's Bite, strip a card, and then play the Voltic Bolt for 4. They pitch a yellow, that's good for us. We could send the Aether Ice Vein, but at this point we value the raw damage more than any like disruptive effects. Pitch a blue for that, that's okay. They're at 14, so it's getting pretty close. I think 2 cards away. They're sending attack. We're gonna go ahead and Crucible and then send Ice Bolts here. We'll see if they have another blue in hand or not. All right, they have another blue, that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and just block for 3 here. We're gonna take 4, and then we're just gonna go ahead and arsenal the Weather Vane and pass. We're gonna hope that our pitch stack is here. Our pitch stack is kind of here. We're missing a blue ice card. That's actually really bad. We're gonna have to just use Cloak here. This is really not great. So we're missing the blue ice card. This is really bad. I think we might have just accidentally lost the game because we need the ice fuse. This is the main problem. So I think we just lost the game, unfortunately. It's a really delicate combo. So if we just have the blue ice card here, I could pass back, but anything that they would do would strip the cards from us, and then we lose all the combo pieces from our hands. So this is a total disaster. Even if they sent like lethal damage there, and we had to block with the card anyway, we can't even execute this combo. So there's just a lot of problems, but I think we can maybe try to mitigate some of this. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to play one of the Weather Vanes. We're gonna go ahead and just use Crucible here just to get an amp. We're gonna go ahead and just play it. We're gonna fuse. We're going to play it for 0. Take 5 Arcane, which is good in other circumstances, but not when they have AB4. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put the other Ice Eternal into Arsenal. When they try to do something on their turn, we're just going to go ahead and just pitch everything into it. Okay, so they're going to pass. We're going to Spellfire, Cloak, Epot, and now we can play this Ice Eternal for 12. It's a lot of damage, but I just don't think it's enough. We really needed that second Weather Vane to already be played on our turn. Deals 10 Arcane. This is good. We can maybe get there with the snapback. But they go to 6. We did miss out on a lot. At this point, I'm just going to step in post-game recording and just kind of talk through this. I play out the rest of the game and we try to do like 3 different endgame lines involving like snapback and some tall damage. We try to close it out. Of course, this doesn't get there through AB4. So I just want to talk a little bit more about what happened earlier. So we had the opportunity to pitch an ice card behind the Ice Eternal. We pitched the Photon Splicing that ended up costing us the game. If things were different, we could use the chess piece just to throw one of the Ironides in front. We get to live at 2 life, and then we get to play the full combo. So we missed out, I believe, on 8 potential damage because we missed 4 Frostbites, which would have equaled 4 damage on the first Ice Eternal and then 4 more damage on the second Ice Eternal. So theoretically, my opponent should have lost the game if we had pitched correctly. So I think what this goes to show is that it is very possible to do this combo. However, there are a bunch of factors. There was one turn where my Oldhim opponent had 5 cards and did literally 4 damage. If they had sent any more damage on that turn, then maybe we don't get the flexibility just to put an Ironhide piece in front and hold 5 cards with the 2 Epots. So I do think that this combo kind of falls apart if your Oldhim opponent actually demands real cards from your hand. If we're forced to block with 1 or, God forbid, 2 cards in that hand, then all of a sudden the combo falls apart. So I think it only works if your Oldhim opponent is not actively trying to trade damage, but even I think most fatigue Oldhims, even if they're not even trying to play like red attacks, just have enough, good damage cards in the deck that at some point they probably will just require you to block. And it mainly comes down to if that happens during that turn lineup. I also think that the Guardians can add Pummel in the deck and just counter pitch stack it. They just have it in Arsenal until they believe that you're at your pitch stack. And then, if they pummel on that turn, we just 100% lose the game. So I think that it is an effective combo. I think it's very cool. And I think that if we had just literally changed the pitch order of one card, we would have won this game. But I do see a lot of potential counterplay from the other opponent. So I think it's very effective. We'll have to see how players adapt if the Guardians can beat it. And this is really only specific to Oldhim and Terra. So, you know, for Bravo, you're going to play very differently. Overall, I hope it's still informative for you as a player, though. I definitely think that you could watch this game and just imagine if I had just not been an idiot and just pitched the correct card. We would have had a really explosive endgame turn, and I would have done the double Ice Eternal and won. So, you know, in our head, we can pretend like we pulled it off. Until next time, thank you for watching.